Welcome to Star Bios. I'm your host, Casey Gold. Today, we're going to delve into the fascinating life of George Carlin, one of the most influential comedians of our time. With his biting wit and irreverent humor, Carlin challenged societal norms and pushed boundaries like few others. But before he became a countercultural icon, Carlin was just a young boy growing up in New York City. Let's take a journey through his early life and explore the experiences that shaped him into the groundbreaking comedian we know today. George Carlin was born on May 12, 1937, in Manhattan, New York, to Patrick and Mary Carlin. His father, an Irish immigrant, worked as a national advertising manager for the Sunbeam Products Company, while his mother, a secretary, was of Irish descent. The family lived in a small apartment in Morningside Heights, where young George spent most of his childhood. The neighborhood was a vibrant melting pot of cultures, with African American, Hispanic, and white families living together in close proximity. This diverse environment would later influence Carlin's comedic style, as he drew upon the various accents, languages, and experiences of his neighbors. Growing up during World War II, George was exposed to the harsh realities of war from a young age. He remembers listening to radio broadcasts of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's speeches, watching newsreels of battles and bombings, and hearing stories from soldiers returning from the front lines. The post-war era, with its rising consumerism and social conformity, would later become a target for Carlin's satire, as he challenged the status quo and pushed boundaries with his irreverent humor. Carlin's family life was complex and influential in shaping his future. His father, Patrick, was a strict disciplinarian who valued education and encouraged George to pursue his interests in comedy and writing. However, their relationship was strained, and Carlin often felt stifled by his father's authoritarian rule. In contrast, his mother, Mary, was more nurturing and supportive, encouraging George to explore his creativity and individuality. The 1940s and 1950s were a time of great cultural change in America, with the rise of television, rock and roll, and the Beat generation. As George navigated this rapidly changing landscape, he was drawn to the works of authors like Allen Ginsberg and Jack Kerouac, whose rejection of mainstream values and celebration of nonconformity would later influence his own comedic style. He spent hours listening to radio shows like The Shadow and The Lone Ranger, using his imagination to create his own stories and characters. One of the most significant relationships in Carlin's early life was with his closest childhood friend, Jack Burns. The two boys met when George was 14, after his family relocated to Queens. They spent hours exploring the neighborhood, listening to radio shows, and creating their own comedy routines. This partnership would later blossom into a successful comedy duo, with Carlin and Burns performing together on stage and screen. As we explore the early life of George Carlin, it becomes clear that the seeds of his future success were sown in these formative years. The complexities of his family life, the cultural richness of his surroundings, and the influential relationships he formed all contributed to the development of his unique perspective and comedic voice. From the jazz clubs of Harlem to the radio shows of his childhood, George Carlin's early life was a rich tapestry of experiences that would later inform his groundbreaking comedy and cement his status as a countercultural icon. Carlin's entry into the world of comedy began in the 1950s when he started working as a radio disc jockey in Boston. It was during this time that he developed his unique voice and style, which would later become a hallmark of his stand-up routines. He spent hours honing his craft, experimenting with different accents, characters, and comedic styles. His experiences on the radio also taught him the importance of timing, tone, and audience engagement, skills that would serve him well in his future career as a comedian. In the early 1960s, Carlin began to make a name for himself in the comedy world. He started performing stand-up at local clubs and venues, where he quickly gained a reputation for his irreverent humor and biting wit. His early routines often focused on observations about everyday life, from the mundane to the absurd. He poked fun at everything from consumer culture to social norms, using his sharp tongue and quick wit to skewer the status quo. One of Carlin's earliest influences was the legendary comedian Lenny Bruce, who was known for his bold and unapologetic style. Like Bruce, Carlin was drawn to the idea of using comedy as a form of social commentary, to challenge people's assumptions and push them out of their comfort zones. This approach would become a hallmark of Carlin's career, as he continued to tackle tough subjects like politics, religion, and censorship. In 1961, Carlin met his future wife, Brenda Hosbrook, at a comedy club in Chicago. The two were married soon after, and Brenda became an important partner in Carlin's career, helping him to develop his material and navigate the ups and downs of show business. Together, they had a daughter, Kelly, who would later become a source of inspiration for many of Carlin's routines. The 1960s were a time of great change and upheaval in America, with the civil rights movement, the Vietnam War, and the rise of counterculture all making headlines. Carlin's comedy reflected this tumultuous era, as he tackled topics like racism, war, and social justice. His routines often walked a fine line between humor and outrage, using irony and satire to make pointed commentary on the issues of the day. In 1967, Carlin released his first album, Takeoffs and Put-Ons, which featured many of the characters and accents that had become staples of his stand-up routine. The album was a moderate success, but it laid the groundwork for future releases like FM and M and Class Clown, which would cement Carlin's status as one of the most innovative and daring comedians of his generation. As we explore the remarkable achievements of George Carlin, it becomes clear that his rise to stardom was not just about his talent or his timing, but about his willingness to take risks and challenge the status quo. From his early days as a radio DJ to his emergence as a countercultural icon, Carlin's career has been marked by a consistent commitment to pushing boundaries and questioning authority. In the 1980s and 1990s, Carlin's comedy became even more biting and incisive, as he tackled topics like politics, corporate greed, and the erosion of civil liberties. His routines often featured complex, layered language and a deep sense of irony, which challenged his audiences to think critically about the world around them. Albums like Playin' With Your Head and Jammin' in New York showcased Carlin's ability to balance humor and outrage, using his unique voice and perspective to comment on the issues of the day. One of the most significant aspects of Carlin's later career was his willingness to push the boundaries of language and content. He was a fierce advocate for free speech and the First Amendment, and he often incorporated profanity and provocative material into his routines. This approach earned him both praise and criticism, but it also helped to establish him as one of the most fearless and uncompromising comedians of his generation. In addition to his stand-up work, Carlin also appeared in a number of films and television shows during this period. He had a recurring role on the popular sitcom The Simpsons, and he made guest appearances on programs like Saturday Night Live and Late Night with Conan O'Brien. These performances helped to introduce Carlin to a new generation of fans, and they cemented his status as a beloved and respected figure in American comedy. Throughout his life, Carlin was also a prolific writer and commentator. He published several books, including Brain Droppings and Napalm and Silly Putty, which featured his unique blend of humor, social commentary, and philosophical insight. These works offered a glimpse into Carlin's creative process and his intellectual curiosity, and they helped to establish him as one of the most thoughtful and innovative comedians of his time. In his final years, Carlin continued to perform and create, even as he struggled with health problems and personal loss. He released his last album, It's Bad For You, in 2008, just a few months before his death. The album was a testament to his enduring creativity and his commitment to his craft, and it featured many of the same themes and ideas that had driven his work throughout his career. As we look back on the life and career of George Carlin, it's clear that he left an indelible mark on American comedy and culture. His influence can be seen in countless other comedians and writers, from Chris Rock to Jon Stewart, and his legacy continues to inspire new generations of artists and thinkers. Through his fearless commitment to free speech, his innovative approach to language and content, and his unwavering dedication to his craft, George Carlin established himself as one of the most important and enduring figures in American comedy. As he once said, "I think it's the duty of the comedian to find out where the line is drawn and cross it." Throughout his life, Carlin consistently pushed that line, challenging his audiences and himself to think differently about the world and our place in it. That's all for today's Star Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I'm Casey Gold reminding you to keep shooting for the stars.